Back in April, Morgan Stanley's Joachim Fels wrote that the Greek crisis might cause Germany to eventually leave Europe's monetary union. Well, now Ireland is getting a bailout, and a couple of other countries do appear to be on the brink of something bad. Joachim is with us this morning to talk about the EU's sovereign debt debacle and what is going to come next. Joachim is co-chief of global economics at Morgan Stanley. He's in London this morning. Joachim, let's really get down to brass tacks. Are we getting closer to the breakup of the EMU?
Well, I think that breakup was always going to be a long-run story. I don't think we're anywhere close. I think the focus is now on making sure that this sovereign debt crisis that is unfolding in the periphery does not lead to contagion in the core.
So what is going to determine whether that contagion ends up spreading to the core? What can the EU do to stop it? What can the IMF do to stop it? Are the steps that they're taking with Ireland right now going to be sufficient? Or do we need to see bailout packages for Portugal and perhaps for Spain?
Well, unfortunately, I think there's very little to stop the contagion at this stage. I think investors have lost confidence in the ability of Portugal to turn around its situation. So it looks likely that Portugal will be forced into the EFSF, into the bailout fund. The problem for Portugal is 80% of its debt is held by foreigners. So they have to rely on the kindness of foreign investors. And there's not much kindness left. So I think the issue now is whether or not this will spread into Spain. Spain is clearly in a different league than Portugal, Ireland and Greece. The advantage that Spain has is it has a big domestic buyer base for its bonds, namely the banks. Also, the banking sector does not look as bad as the Irish banking sector, but that doesn't mean Spain is safe.
Joachim, what is going to be the trigger for Spain? What is going to determine whether or not Spain makes it? Is it purely in the hands of the markets? And if so, what do we need to watch?
I think it is truly in the hands of markets, because the whole issue here is that these governments need to be able to fund themselves at sensible rates. What's happening now is markets are pushing these bond yields higher and higher, and there will come a point at which governments will say enough is enough, and we will rather borrow from the EFSF at a sensible rate, which is lower than the market rate. Now, Spain is not there yet, but Portugal is already there. Portuguese 3-year bonds trade at a 5.5% yield. That's higher than the yield at which Portugal could borrow from the fund.
So what is Spain's, when does Spain cry mercy? What do the bonds have to be yielding for the Spanish government to truly begin to feel unsustainable pain?
Well, I think yields would have to move a lot higher than they are now. I think only if we get into a range of, say, 6–7% for bond yields in the short end of the curve, then I think it gets a problem. So we're not there yet for Spain. I think the focus is now on Portugal, and then I think the markets will turn to Spain.
Joachim, let's talk about Angela Merkel for a moment. What on earth is she doing talking down the euro, making alarmist statements about the situation in Ireland? I know, as much as you know, that that's how she feels. But is she doing any good making these statements in public?
Well, clearly these statements have made the crisis much worse. I think that's clear to everyone. But her view is that she's responsible primarily to the German taxpayer. And the basic position of the German government is that private investors should participate in future bailouts. So this has clearly aggravated the crisis, but I think it's very difficult for her, for domestic political reasons, to step back from that position.
So, Joachim, we know that Angela Merkel wields tremendous power due to the German economy and the role that Germany plays in the ECB, but ultimately, who needs to take charge here? Is there one person who can single-handedly get Europe back on track, slow the contagion process, and get everybody to start talking rationally again?
Well, unfortunately, there isn't. I don't think she can do it on her own, given her domestic policy agenda. There are 16 member countries in the euro area, and I think even the ECB, Jean-Claude Trichet, does not have the power to stop this crisis.
Joachim, it's been a pleasure having you here on the Inside Track. Joachim Fels of Morgan Stanley.